This video is brought to you by Saraswati Vidyalaya Union. Today we are going to study about the reproduction in lower and higher animals. In that we are going to study about the male reproductive system. Fine. In the last lecture we have seen about the information related to the puberty and the basic information about the sex reproduction. Now today in today's lesson we are going to study about the human reproductive system. So in this lesson we are going to see specially related to the human being only. Okay, so the reproductive system is same in the human as well as the reproductive system is same in the other animals also. Now let's see. These humans are dioecious animal, that is sexes are separate. Therefore they reproduce sexually and exhibit viviparity. That means embryonic development is completed in uterus of female and she gave birth directly to young ones. Now in human being, that human reproduction process, that various series of events are included like gametogenesis, copulation, fertilization, embryonic development, organogenesis and the birth to fetus. Now today we are going to study about the human male reproductive system. In the human male reproductive system, this is the reproductive system of male are located partly into the abdominal cavity and partly outside the abdominal cavity, and the organs that located into the abdominal cavity, so that organs are known as the internal genitalia. That means it is testes, duct system, sex glands, while the organs which are situated outside the abdominal cavity are called as the external genitalia, that is known as the scrotum, penis, etc. Now let's see in detail about this. In this first one about the internal genitalia, as I have already explained you, the organs that located into the abdominal cavity are called as the internal genitalia. So in that internal genitalia, the first that we are going to study, that is known as the testes. So these testes, it's a pair of testes, mesodermal in origin and form in the lower abdominal cavity. Means they are located in the pouch-like structure which is known as the scrotum. Generally, during the early fetal life, the testes develop in abdominal cavity and later they descend into the scrotum sac through a passage called as the inguinal canal. Means testes begin to descend from abdomen during 3rd week of gestation and completely descend during 7th month of development via inguinal canal. See that whenever there is a failure of testes to descend in the scrotum, it is called as the cryptochidism. This is one of the disorder related to the testes. See that for this purpose I have taken reference of YouTube. I have downloaded one video. Let's see that video. In that video it is shown that how that testes which descend into the abdominal cavity, from that abdominal cavity, okay, into the scrotum sac. So let's see about this.
The inguinal canal is a passageway through the abdominal wall that develops in both males and females. In males, proper development of the inguinal canal is an important event for the subsequent descent of the testicle into the scrotum from its initial site of development in the abdomen. Testicular descent takes place in 2 phases, the transabdominal phase and the transinguinal phase. The transabdominal phase is a passive process during which a band of mesenchyme known as the gubernaculum appears to tether the testis to the scrotum. The testis, which initially lies on the dorsal abdominal wall, develops between the peritoneum and the rest of the body wall. Between 10 and 15 weeks of development, the abdominal cavity enlarges, causing the anchored testis to be drawn downward to the mouth of the deep inguinal ring. During this descent, the testes travel in a lateral to medial direction. The transinguinal phase is an active process that takes place over a couple of days between 25 and 35 weeks of development. A finger-like evagination of peritoneum, called the processus vaginalis, pushes its way through the tissues of the developing abdominal wall. This evagination follows the course of the gubernaculum and acquires sleeve-like coverings of tissue corresponding to the various layers of the developing abdominal wall. These layers, which develop into the transversalis fascia and the internal oblique and external oblique muscles, follow the processus vaginalis and become the layers of the spermatic cord, the internal spermatic fascia, the cremasteric fascia, and external spermatic fascia, respectively. The leading tip of the processus follows along the gubernaculum and enters the scrotum. The testicle, together with the ductus deferens and testicular vessels, then follows. The testicle is able to enter into and move within the sleeve-like layers of the developing spermatic cord surrounding the gubernaculum and the processus vaginalis by compressing the tube-like processus. The proximal end of the processus vaginalis normally disappears. The distal tip survives and becomes the tunica vaginalis. The remains of the gubernaculum form the ligament of the scrotum. In female fetuses, the processus vaginalis develops to create an inguinal canal, but the descent of the ovary stops in the pelvis. The processus vaginalis disappears, leaving the remains of the gubernaculum to become the ligament of the ovary and the round ligament of the uterus.
So, you all understood that how these testes will descend into the scrotum from the abdominal cavity, and that passage which is called as the inguinal canal. Now see that each testis is oval in shape, that is 4 to 5 cm long, 2 to 3 cm wide and 3 cm thick. Then if you have seen the histology of the testis, this testis is externally covered by collagenous connective tissue layer. It is called as the tunica albuginea. Outer to it is an incomplete peritoneal covering called as the tunica vaginalis, and inner to it is tunica vasculosa. It is a thin membranous and vascular layer. Fibers from tunica albuginea divide each testis into about 200 to 300 testicular lobules. In the diagram it is given already. Each one of these, so each testis into the 200 to 300 testiculars, and each with 1 to 4 highly coiled seminiferous tubules, and each seminiferous tubule is internally lined by the cuboidal germinal epithelial cells, that is known as the spermatogonia, and few large pyramidal cells called as the Sertoli cells. The shape of that Sertoli cell is like a pyramid, that's why it is known as the Sertoli cell, or it is also known as the sustentacular cells. In this, the germinal epithelial cells undergo gametogenesis to form the spermatozoa, means sperm, and the Sertoli cells provide nutrition to the developing sperms. Various stages of spermatogenesis can be seen in the seminiferous tubules. The innermost spermatogonial cell, which is diploid, means to end, then primary spermatocyte, secondary spermatocyte, spermatid and sperms. In between the seminiferous tubule, the cells are present, that cells are called as the interstitial or the Leydig cells, and these cells, they are producing the hormone which is called as the androgen or the testosterone, and this hormone is very important to maintain the secondary sexual character that we have already studied in the last lecture. Now let's see about the accessory ducts. In that accessory duct, the accessory ducts inside retate testis, vasa efferentia, epididymis, vasa deferens, and ejaculator duct and urethra. All these are the parts of accessory duct. All the seminiferous tubules of the testes at the posterior surface form a network of tubules called as a retate testis. That retate testis is made up of 12 to 20 fine tubules which are arising from the retate testis, that is called as a vasa efferentia. And these vasa efferentia which are carrying the sperms from the testis and open into the epididymis. This epididymis, it is a long, highly coiled tube which is differentiated into an upper caput, middle corpus, and lower quada epididymis. And the sperms undergo maturation in the epididymis. The next part of that male reproductive system, that is vasa deferens, posteriorly. So on the posterior side of that epididymis, so that epididymis which opens into the vasa deferens, and this vasa deferens which travels up to the abdominal cavity and loop over the ureter, and it opens into that urethra. Before doing so, it joins the duct of seminal vesicle to form that ejaculatory duct. See that here in between this ejaculatory duct is there. This ejaculatory duct passes through the prostate gland and open into the urethra. And this urethra, it is the common passage for urine and the semen. Means it carries urine also, it carries semen also. That's why it is known as the urinogenital duct. In male's body, this urethra, it is long and extends through the penis, and it opens to the outside by an opening called as the urethral meniscus, or it is known as a urethral orifice. But in the females, this urethra, the size of urethra which is smaller as compared to the male's body. In this, all the accessory duct except urethra are present in pairs. This urethra, which is divided into the three parts, namely prostatic urethra, membranous urethra, and penile urethra. If you observe the proximal portion of the urethra which is surrounded by the prostatic gland, it is called as the prostatic urethra. And the middle portion of urethra that extend from the prostatic gland to the base of penis, it is called as the membranous urethra. And the next part, that is the distal portion of the urethra that passes through the penis, it is called as the penile urethra. So, and at the tip of this only that urethral opening is present. And in male urethra, it is the made up of that particular sphincters, that muscles are there, the sphincters of smooth muscles are present, and external sphincters of the striated muscles are present. So this is the information about the accessory duct and various parts of the male reproductive system. Now let's see about the various glands. That glands are known as the accessory sex glands. There are three types of glands. In that three types of glands which are present in the male reproductive system, in that the first gland which is known as the seminal vesicle. So this seminal vesicle, you can see in the diagram also, it is a pair of glands lying on the posterior side of urinary bladder. It secretes an alkaline seminal fluid which contains fructose, fibrinogen, and prostaglandin, and it contributes about 60% of total volume of semen. In that, fructose provides energy for sperm for movement. And this fibrinogen is there. This fibrinogen coagulates the semen into the bolus for quick propulsion in the vagina. The prostaglandins stimulate reverse peristalsis in vagina and uterus, aiding faster movement of sperms towards the egg in the female body. Means the fibrinogen is there. That fibrinogen is playing an important role for the coagulation of semen after the ejaculation. And this prostaglandin is there. That prostaglandin stimulates contraction in vagina to facilitate fertilization. Now the next gland is there, that is a prostate gland. It is large and single gland made up of 20 to 30 lobes and is located underneath the urinary bladder. It surrounds the urethra and releases a milky, white and slightly acidic prostatic fluid into the urethra, and it forms about 30% of volume of semen. This prostatic gland, which contains citric acid, acid phosphatase and various other enzymes also. So the acid phosphatase, it protects the sperm from the acidic environment of the vagina, and this prostatic fluid which forms the semen and probably provides the nourishment to the sperms. Next type of glands that are known as the Cowper's gland, or it is also known as a bulbourethral gland. So these glands are small, pea-size and pair gland situated on either side of urethra. This gland secretes an alkaline, viscous, mucus-like fluid which acts as a lubricant during copulation. Like this, in this chapter we have studied about the internal genitalia and external genitalia of male reproductive system. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.